What if I told you the Batmobile isn't just Batman's car? It's a time machine for his personality. If your ride could sum up your entire vibe in one look, what would you be driving today? From the '66 TV car to Burton's gothic jet engine beast, Nolan's urban war tank, Snyder's armoured arsenal, and Reeves' stripped-down muscle car, the Batmobile has evolved with every era of Batman. Here's the real question. Which design says Batman is a monster? Which one paints him as a soldier? And which shows him as a garage tinkerer? Each version doesn't just look cool, it tells us exactly what kind of Batman the directors wanted us to believe in. And yeah, sometimes it screams, I definitely collect Hot Wheels. So let's start at the beginning of Batman's darker cinematic shift, with a ride that looked less like a superhero's car and more like a gothic machine from a horror story. Burton's gothic monster hit the screen in 1989 with a Batmobile that looked like nothing audiences had seen before. Designer Anton Furst, who won an Oscar for the film's art direction, created it to fit Gotham's twisted mix of Gothic and Art Deco. Built on a heavily modified car chassis and custom frame with input from sculptor Keith Short and other craftspeople, the car was stretched into a low, sinister shape, with wings arcing up like architecture. It wasn't camp, it was menace. Exactly the break Burton wanted from the playful convertible of the Adam West show. The Adam West Batmobile had shark repellent. Burton's has traumatize your dreams mode. Would you drive this gothic monster in real life? Not gonna lie, parallel parking this thing would send me straight to Arkham. The look pulled from all kinds of influences: 1930s salt flat racers, aircraft turbines, even war machines. The result was a vehicle that felt like it belonged to Gotham itself. On screen, the car was stacked with features that reinforced Batman's edge. It fired up with a jet turbine afterburner, armour plating sealed it shut at the push of a button, and pop-up guns reminded you that this Batman didn't joke around. The shield effect was pulled off using practical models and miniatures, while the sequel expanded things with Bat Missile mode. In Batman Returns, the vehicle literally split apart into a narrow escape pod, another trick made with clever rigs and miniatures rather than digital fakery. It looked absurd on paper, but in motion it somehow worked, and audiences bought into the idea that this machine could exist. Burton's Batmobile cemented Batman as a dark figure of the night, but when the franchise moved on from Burton's vision, the car made just as sharp a turn, this time into something louder, brighter, and built to glow. The vibes go from Nosferatu on wheels to Saturday morning toy commercial. Ready?
Calling the Capes Crusader, the Batmobile speeds into action. It's destruction at the docks with King Shark.
Joel Schumacher's Batman era brought a full redesign of Gotham, and the Batmobile sat right at the centre of it. Where Tim Burton's cars leaned into gothic menace, Schumacher's leaned into spectacle and merchandising. Barbara Ling oversaw the production design, with Tim Flattery creating the Batman Forever car and Harold Belker handling the Batman and Robin version. Both were built to look striking on posters, in toy aisles and on screen. Less urban predator, more neon display. Batman Forever's Batmobile was long, ribbed, and lined with glowing blue elements that lit up its silhouette. Low-key, somebody needs to explain the physics of those spinning bat symbols. Nolan would never. Two of its flashiest tricks were wheels that could turn sideways for slides, and a grappling hook that let the car climb walls, at least in theory. Did they look cool? Yes. Did they work in real life? Only if your driveway is a literal half-pipe. Then came Batman and Robin. Harold Belker's take was even bigger and flashier. The 30-foot-long roadster stripped away the canopy entirely, leaving Batman exposed in an open, single seat. The car's body pulsed with lights, different colours in the turbine intake, glowing wheel panels and sharper fins that soared over its rear. Critics hammered these cars as toy-like and overdone, while fans often debated whether they drifted too far from the character's darker core. But commercially, they nailed their target. Kids loved the glow, and the Batmobile from this era burned itself into pop culture memory. And after all this light and spectacle, the next Batmobile would swing to the opposite extreme, stripping away style in favour of raw, brutal function, ready for the glow-up to become a blow-up. Christopher Nolan's answer to the Batmobile wasn't a car, it was the Tumbler, a machine built to look like it had rolled straight out of a military prototype lab. In 2005, audiences expecting fins and sleek lines instead got a tank-like beast with jagged armour and heavy angles. Production designer Nathan Crowley worked with Nolan to shape it as a hybrid between a Lamborghini and a Humvee, something that felt both aggressive and functional.
Stay calm.
Nolan even started with a Play-Doh model on his desk before Crowley scaled it into working designs. Inside the story, it was a Wayne Enterprises prototype designed for bridging rivers and urban assaults, and on screen, it backed that up with raw presence. 4 drivable tumblers were built, each powered by V8 engines and reinforced with off-road suspension. That's how the stunts looked so convincing. On screen, the tumbler could hit 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds and looked like it jumped without ramps, with propane jets used to sell the thrust. Twin autocannons and a rocket launcher cemented the idea. It wasn't just Batman's car, it was his personal war machine. Batman Begins introduced stealth mode, where the vehicle dropped into blackout silence.
I'm on him.
Then The Dark Knight hit audiences with its biggest surprise. When damaged, the Tumbler shed a piece of its frame that transformed into the Batpod. This motorcycle, with its extended wheels and unusual steering, was a practical stunt rig used in real shoots. Awkward to ride but unforgettable on screen. By The Dark Knight Rises, multiple tumblers appeared, repurposed into Bane's fleet with missile cannons and heavy artillery, showing how dangerous this tech could be in the wrong hands. What if Batman decided his car wasn't just for patrol but for full-on battlefield deployment? That's the direction Ben Affleck's Batman took in Batman vs Superman, where the Batmobile became a weaponized powerhouse. Designed by Patrick Tatopoulos, with Dennis McCarthy overseeing production, this version was less about sleek myth-making and more about showing a Batman ready to go toe-to-toe with superpowered threats. Visually, it pulled elements from the past. The shape had sharp, sculpted lines reminiscent of Burton's designs, while the heavy armour and bulk nodded back to Nolan's Tumbler. Production notes placed the car at around 20 feet long and 12 feet wide, massive and heavily armoured, built to feel like a rolling bunker. So it wasn't just cinematic exaggeration, it actually filled the screen with physical mass. Imagine trying to parallel park that thing at the grocery store. Low-slung plating gave it the profile of a sports car, while remoulded tractor tyres made it look like it could plough through concrete walls without breaking stride. The real highlight was how much of the vehicle's personality came from its arsenal. A front-mounted Gatling-style gun rotated into position, missile pods tucked along the frame, and countermeasures allowed it to deflect incoming fire. Unlike past Batmobiles, which leaned on stealth or theatrics, this incarnation screamed confrontation. It was less a getaway car and more an assault vehicle, built to hold its ground against larger-than-life enemies. That choice reflected Affleck's Batman too. He was written as a veteran fighter, someone hardened enough to prepare for alien invaders instead of petty criminals. And the Batmobile was only part of it. The Batwing stepped up as a combat-ready aircraft, more attack jet than glider. By Justice League, the arsenal expanded again. The Flying Fox served as a massive transport hub for the team, while the Nightcrawler tackled confined spaces with its 4-legged crawl. Batman wasn't a solo vigilante anymore. He was a strategist arming an entire squad. So after years of gothic beasts, neon showpieces, and armoured tanks, the Batmobile had turned into an all-out war machine. But what happens when you strip away the heavy weapons and go back to something raw and handmade? Matt Reeves' 2022 Batmobile stripped things back by showing a Bruce Wayne who built his car with his own hands. Instead of a prototype from a defense lab or a neon showpiece, this version looked like a classic muscle car torn apart and reforged in someone's garage. The design drew from late 60s and early 70s muscle cars, most notably the roofline of a Dodge Charger and the aggression of a Mustang, reworked into something more brutal and intimidating. This wasn't about gadgets. Under the hood sat at around 650 horsepower V8 engine, purpose-built to rattle the street and howl like an animal. The jet exhaust slammed fire out the back, creating a shriek that felt as much psychological weapon as mechanical power. Early scenes introduced it less as a vehicle and more like a presence, the kind of machine that makes criminals freeze before it even moves. Reeves even cited Christine as an influence, tapping into the idea of a car that feels alive and menacing. For production, the team built 4 distinct cars, V8 stunt units for chase scenes, a Tesla-based EV for quiet, controlled shots, a ram jump rig for crashes, and a version dedicated to camera mounts. The car was fully armoured and bullet-resistant, but unlike its predecessors, it carried no missiles or heavy artillery. That choice made it more personal, raw power over firepower, intimidating because it looked and sounded like Bruce built it himself. The Batmobile has never just been about gadgets or horsepower, it's always been shorthand for the kind of Batman we're dealing with. Across the timeline, the car shifted shape with each director's vision. Every version said something different: lonely myth, pop icon, militarized tactician, or street-level vigilante. So here's the big one. Which one is your Batmobile? If I missed something, a designer or a spec, drop it below. Cheers!